friends, Jewel back with another super cool astrology video, and I wanted to talk about the opposition between Venus and Neptune and what we see when this occurs in the birth chart. So Venus is what we value and what we love, how we love, our style of loving, and our style of how we want to be loved, how we want to give and receive love, and very much about how we engage in our social relationships, our love relationships, our friendships, and our sense of sensuality as well. Neptune is about things, it's the higher octave of Venus, where Venus is like cane sugar, white sugar. How do I want to put that? No. Venus is like raw sugar, where it still has a little bit of the smell to it, a little bit of the molasses in it, and you know, the good stuff. Neptune is refined white sugar. So they're both sweet, but Neptune is super sweet. It's refined. So the refined element of Venus. So when we have these two planets of romance and love meeting in an opposition, we very much are prone to seeing what we want to see in other people in this, with this particular aspect. Neptune is things that are undefinable, things that are not, that we really haven't sat down and put pen to paper about. It's a lot of our wishes and what we would like to be, and is doesn't have a lot of boundaries and has a lot of expectations, though. It wants very much what it wants. And so in the things that Neptune is always after is always going to be about denial and more sweetness and romance and things that are easy and things that we don't have to work very hard for, because this is a more lethargic energy. So we can have a lot of unrealistic dreams and expectations with this particular conjunction. And it happens in our romantic relationships and in our social and friendship relationships, and among females especially. We can project things onto other females. If you are a female, then you normally would be doing. So it's one where they actually develop deep trust issues as a result of their inability to originally see what they are really looking at. So they see what they want to see. This becomes problematic when the other person doesn't go along with what they want, or what they want to see, or what they wish would be. They can find themselves heartbroken a lot and feel betrayed a lot, and have an experience that people have massively disappointed them or betrayed their trust. So they often wonder, are people being faithful to me? Are people telling me the truth? Is this what I really think it is? And they can develop this way of kind of pestering people about their, what are you thinking, or what are your motives, or, what's really going on here? Are you being faithful? And they're insecure about their value, ultimately, when it comes to relationships. So here's the thing. You aren't actually being deceived the majority of the time when you have this particular aspect. You are deceiving yourself. When we project our hopes and fantasies onto another person, we are denying their actual real qualities and setting ourselves up for an eventual disaster when those qualities start to shine through. So it's very much like going to a movie theater, and you buy a ticket to a certain movie, and you go in and you see the movie playing on the big screen. Well, you like a very specific kind of movie. You have very specific ideas about what makes you happy and about what you want to see in other people, in this case, in the movie. And you have a lot of predetermined ideas about what movies should be and what should be in movies. And so you are very much in the habit of bringing your own personal projector that you can then point at the screen and turn on, and it plays all your favorite things. So as time goes by and you're watching The Princess Bride superimposed on the documentary, say, that you bought the ticket to go see, the batteries start to wear down. And the projector starts to, cut out a little bit. And the earbuds that you put in to not listen to what was actually going on in the theater, but instead to listen to what you would like to hear instead, something more pleasing, that starts to wear out and cut out, and eventually your projector that you brought, it never lasts as long as the movie does. You never learn. But it never lasts as long as the movie does, and it shorts out, and then you're faced with this documentary, this reality picture that you actually don't want to see. That's not what you went there to see. You went there to play your own movie, but you need a big projector to do that. And so you go to the manager and say, I want my money back. I went there to see, this movie that I was playing, and it didn't work out for me, and now I'm faced with this boring documentary that's really based on reality, and I don't want to see this. I would like my money back. I feel completely betrayed by your movie theater. I can't believe that you did this to me. And the manager says, so you bought a ticket to a movie that you didn't want to see. And now you would like me to give you your money back because you have ended up watching that movie that you bought the ticket to. And the person that has this aspect says, oh. So when you hear it spoken back to you, it very much makes sense why you're in that position. Nobody made you buy that ticket. You decided to do it. And you decided to go in there and see what you wanted to see. And so that is very much how oppositions work. We project our own stuff, whatever that is in whatever planet. In this case, it's Venus, so it's things that are beautiful, it's things that are loving, it's things that are romantic, it's things that are sensual. We project that onto another, especially in our romantic relationships. That is what we really see. And it becomes disappointing because that is not what is really there. And when this happens and the person's real characteristics or real character comes out, or we see what is really there before us, of course we're going to feel betrayed because we never saw any of those things in that person. We can't believe that they did that to us. I never thought that he could do that to me. Well, if you would have looked closer and saw that he had a jail tat across his head that said, I like to deceive women, then maybe you would have had a clue. But you didn't see that because what you projected onto him was a crown, a princely crown that covered up the jail tat that says, I like to deceive women. So it's a process of understanding that you have to be willing to look at what people are really showing you. And keep in mind that when you're in the early stages of a relationship and someone tells you something about themselves, it's probably true. So I actually have the trine from Venus to Neptune. So I relate to Venus-Neptune aspects very well. In fact, the sextile, the trine are probably worse than having the hard aspects because there's absolutely no difficulty involved in it. There's nothing in there that makes you think, well, maybe, I shouldn't be thinking this way, or, there's just not a lot of friction involved in it. So people with the sextile, the trine, and the conjunction tend to function in ways that are very delusionary. And so I always, and I have my Venus in the 12th house, so it's very unrealistic being with this trine to Neptune, something I've had to work at. And so I always assumed that I would grow up and I would have a perfect mate, a perfect husband, right? Everything would be great. We would be spending, up to, 22 to 24 hours in bed because I have my Venus in the 12th house, right? We were never going to fight. There was going to be all this cash and money and beautiful house and horses and as many children or as few children as I wanted. It was going to be what I thought it was going to be, is the point. Every unrealistic Neptunian fantasy I pretty much had. And I expected that I was going to grow up. From a very young age, I expected I was going to grow up and that's what I was going to find. Because that's what love was. So, understanding that people are what they show you that they are was a big lesson for me. And when I finally understood that my fantasies and my desires and what I want and what I think is beautiful and wonderful and worthy of climbing up into a tower and letting my very thin hair down to be climbed, that would last about half a second. Those things were my things. That was my stuff. That was just what I wanted. Those were my desires. They had nothing to do with anybody that I was ever with. And so coming to a place where I understood that people are what they are and you must love them as they are was really, really freeing for me. It set me free from that expectation of perfection that when you don't get, you are bitter about. Or when you get into these relationships and, your mother is shaking you and saying, but he's like this, and you're saying, but he said this. You can't expect to not be disappointed when you're coming at relationships from a place of not acknowledging the person that you're actually with. So it's a process of reconnection because there was a massive disappointment or a letdown in the early life when we see aspects from Venus to Neptune. And how we dealt with that is that we created a story or experiences around that were fantastical or beautiful or romantic, and we didn't acknowledge the not niceness of what we were experiencing. The disappointment that we experienced early on is something that that was a horrible thing to feel. We didn't want to have a life with disappointment. So we very much compensated for that by not seeing disappointment, which creates the process of them seeing disappointment. So we have to be willing to very early on be discerning about who you love. Don't believe what people tell you. Believe what they show you. It's very important when you have any aspect from Venus to Neptune to give people an opportunity to show their true colors. When we jump into relationships and we solidify those relationships and they are new and we're still in that infatuation phase, we're still riding high, you can believe that, and this is for anybody actually, because love is a drug. You can believe that you are under a massive dose of opium and that you are not seeing things clearly. So it's wise when you have aspects from Venus to Neptune to date for longer periods of time before jumping into things and making it official. Because you're likely to not see or understand a lot of what's going on behind the scenes with somebody. Where somebody with like, a lot of Saturn in them, they're going to be like pulling out all those realistic qualities about somebody and reevaluating those and, seeing if that matches up with this or that. And somebody with Neptune is going to be like denying those things because, you know what, that's okay. That's okay if he or she does that. I'll deal with that later. Or, maybe that worries me a little bit, but that's all right because this is perfect. And so we get into this process of seeing what we want and not seeing what we don't want. And then being disappointed about it later and feeling betrayed. Well, of course you're betrayed. You betrayed yourself by not seeing what was really there. So, I'm sorry, I'm actually really sick today. So, I hope this was helpful. If it was, please subscribe to my channel. You can find me on the internet at truthandaspectastrology.com. And I would do my regular spiel, but I'm going to collapse into a fit of coughing, and I can't do that. So I'll see you next time. Bye-bye.